Hello everyone, welcome back. My name is Brian. In today's video we're going to be talking about something my son challenged me with, and that is a top 10 list for a beginning woodworker. So I want you to know that this is a challenge that I agonized over for some time. In particular, I was worried about suggesting the wrong tools, what tools that I would keep versus tools I would throw out of the mix, and it was really challenging to come up with only 10 tools. So at the end of this video, I would like to hear from you of the 10 tools that you would keep. Before we get started with the 10 tools that I'm going to recommend every beginning woodworker have, I want to point out that I started with some assumptions. So these assumptions are that you buy your lumber where two sides are surfaced, but the edges might not be cleaned up, and so you still will need to clean up these edges. If you buy your lumber rough, then you can get it cheaper, and this will require some extra tools for you to clean up the faces of the boards. Our other assumption is you're buying your lumber from someplace to where your boards are typically 6 to 10 feet long, and so you'll need to take this really large board and cut it down into smaller pieces that you can use in your woodworking. So to come up with my list, I broke this down into 5 areas of capability that I think every woodworker needs. The first one is material sizing. So we're trying to take that big board and break it into smaller boards. Our second area is layout and measurement, and this is a common thing that everyone needs to do. Our third area is beginning and final surface prep. So we want to create smooth surfaces and smooth edges so that we can use our tools to create aesthetic workpieces. Our fourth area is mechanical connections, and this would include things like various types of clamps, bar clamps, band clamps, and so forth. In addition, I would throw in mechanical drills into that section, such as a Yankee drill or this simple hand drill that you might use to drill holes and to also drive in screws. And finally, there's joinery. In woodworking, we're always tasked with anytime there's 2 or more boards that come together, how do we join them together? And for this, we'll have a collection of tools to use as well. For our first category, which is material sizing, I considered several tools. The first one would be a crosscut saw. Next one would be a rip saw. I also thought a tape measure should be thrown into the mix. It's a relatively common tool that you might want to have. And next, there's the consideration of whether or not you have a chop saw available to you, like a power miter saw, or maybe even a table saw. But since our list is limited to hand tools, I'm going to recommend that you get a crosscut saw. You can pick these up secondhand, relatively cheap. In fact, I think I got this one for $3, and then I sharpened it. One more recommendation for your crosscut panel saw is that the number of teeth per inch make a difference here. If you're just using this for rough sizing of material, I would get a panel saw that had about 8 teeth per inch. I think you'll be happy with this because it will cut through the material rather efficiently. And the next area is layout and measurement tools. Again, hard to choose only a few. Some of the tools I considered were a ruler, a combination square, a bevel gauge, a mortising gauge, a marking gauge, and a compass. In the end, the winners were a ruler, a 12-inch ruler in particular. And for a ruler, I recommend that the graduations on your ruler that you have 1/8 of an inch, 1/16 of an inch, and 1/32 of an inch. If there are 1/64 of an inch increments, I never have found that useful in my woodworking, but some people may have, but people like to have those graduations on their ruler. Our next most useful tool, or the tool that I use the most in my shop, would be a combination square. And here you're checking for square of an edge that you've just cut. You also can check for 45s. You can check the depth of a mortise by sliding this and then going over to your tenon and looking at how long the tenon is. So this is a very useful tool for a variety of reasons in your workshop. So this leaves me with only 2 of these that I could select because I'm limited to 10 tools. Similar to the ruler, you should at least have graduations of 1/8, 1/16, and 1/32 of an inch. In this next area, we ratchet up the difficulty a little bit, and this is for initial surface prep and final surface prep before we assemble a project. In this area, I considered the whole list of bench planes that you could use. In addition to that, I considered the card scraper, the cabinet scraper, the scraping plane. I also considered sharpening tools and even a spoke shave for those that do curved work. The first tool I chose is a card scraper. Card scraper is an inexpensive tool. I use it both for initial surface prep sometimes, especially when I'm gluing up a panel. Afterward, I would use this to remove glue. I also use it for final surface prep many times, in times when I'm removing burn marks from power tools, but also in taking small shavings off a surface to blend things, and it's used for both curve work and flat work pieces, and I've thought this was a very helpful tool to reduce your sanding. The next tool that is a workhorse in the shop is a 4.5 smoothing plane. Now, you can either get a 4 or 4.5. I happen to like my 4.5. This is a tool I've had for 20 some years. I use this on panels that I glue up to create a smooth surface, or if I have a modestly wide workpiece, use this to flatten the surface all by itself. Another way that I use this 4.5 smoothing plane is that I use it to square up edges on a workpiece. This is really helpful, takes some practice in doing this, but it's also very rewarding. Another tool I'm going to add to my list is this low angle rabbet plane. So this is essentially a block plane and does everything that my block plane does, except for it also allows me to create rabbet grooves in the projects that I make in the future. Here you can see the difference between a block plane and the rabbet plane. Here there's a nicker for cutting cross grain rabbets right here. So you can move this out of the way, or you can engage the nicker and that will cut the cross grain for you and you'll get a better rabbet groove. Another thing that can be done with this block plane is that you can round over corners. You can also create a chamfer. So you can do edge treatments with this block plane, and this helps. You can trim dovetails, box joints, and things like that. So that gives us 6 tools on our list. They are the crosscut saw, the ruler, in particular a 12-inch ruler, a 6-inch combination square, a 4.5 bench plane, also a card scraper, and a low angle block plane that is a rabbet plane. I call this next area mechanical connections. And in this section I'm thinking about tools that we use to push 2 or more work pieces together. And so here I'm thinking about the types of clamps, like band clamps that you would use to clamp picture frames, thinking of bar clamps, I'm thinking of countersink tools, tools like drills or hand drills or braces, or even drill bits in this section. Because I'm limiting it to 10 tools, and the tools that come next I thought were most important, I didn't include any of these tools on my list. In this next section we're going to talk about tools that can be used to join 2 or more boards together. This is our joinery section, and some of the tools that were considered are a dovetail saw, a tenon saw, a carcass saw, a sash saw, a bow saw for curve work, and also a coping saw for curve work. In this section we also consider other tools for joinery work, such as chisels, anything from a bench chisel to a paring chisel. Also we include joinery planes like a shoulder plane, a rabbet plane, a plow plane, and a router plane. So the first tool making my list is the dovetail saw. This is typically a 6 to 10 inch saw, and it's filed rip on the teeth, and this is used to cut dovetail joinery, but it can also be used to cut the sides of a tenon. The next tool that I'm going to add to my list is a carcass saw, and here you can see the comparison with the dovetail, or the size of the dovetail saw. Our carcass saw is going to be anywhere from 10 to 14 inches. It is filed crosscut. It is used to make dados, to make crosscuts, and it is a useful tool all around the shop for making case joinery. And no surprise, the next tool or tools is going to be a set of chisels. Yes, I'm going to include the set of chisels as one tool that you typically can buy them as a set. So a set of 5 to 6 bench chisels that are between 1/4 inch and 1 inch in width, and these will help your woodworking all around the shop. You'll use them over and over and over. To round out our top 10, we need to make a choice between one of these 2 saws to cut curve work. Now, some people might choose the coping saw, whereas others might choose the bow saw. Having used both, I would put the coping saw down and I would keep the bow saw on my list. I like the bow saw because in addition to doing everything I do with the coping saw, which is cutting out waste between dovetails and boxtail joints, I can also cut longer curves with the bow saw easier, and I've really enjoyed using this tool. So our top 10 tools address the areas of material sizing, surface prep, layout, measurement, joinery, and making mechanical connections. So our final top 10 list includes a crosscut saw. It also includes a 12-inch ruler. In addition, it includes a 6-inch combination square. It also includes a number 4 or 4.5 smoothing plane, a low angle rabbet plane, a card scraper, Entering the joinery section, it also includes a dovetail saw. We also include a carcass saw, and not just one, but a set of bench chisels. And finally, last but not least, is our bow saw for cutting curved work. Now your list might differ from mine, and I'd love to hear tools that you might include on your list if you send us a comment. This task of eliminating myself to 10 tools was quite challenging. So I also tried to find a way in order to not limit myself to 10 tools. And to do this, I thought about, well, what if there was some magical genie that were able to grant me some additional tools? In those tools, I would include sharpening supplies for both my hand saws and my hand planes. I would also get a tape measure. I would get a rip saw, a rip panel saw. In addition, I would get a number 7 jointer bench plane. And finally, you're going to need clamps. You're going to need lots of clamps, and the phrase is that you can never have enough clamps. So I would recommend getting some clamps. Thank you for watching today. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. In the show description, I'll put links to the tools that made our list, and I'll see you in a video real soon.